I named this channel The Veto because I think the people have the ultimate veto power.
That's great.
It's our freedom. We have the responsibility
Yeah.
to watch over society, to veto the bad ideas in the ballot box.
That's good.
Shelley Gwartney is the chair of the Tulsa County chapter for Moms for Liberty, and she also serves in a role for the national organization. She's actively involved in state and local politics and serves in an elected position for the Tulsa County Republican Party. She's passionate about equipping parents to protect their rights and engage at every level of government. In this episode, we discuss the importance of parental rights, the growing influence of moms within conservative politics, and the importance of average citizens engaging at every level of government. What do you think the modern left attacks the rights of parents so much? What do you make of that?
Well, you think about our children are the greatest asset to the next generation, right? So if you were going to go into any battle, that would probably be the battlefield to go into. So whether it's through education, medical rights, we've seen it across the board. If they can get our kids either believing mom and dad maybe don't know best, maybe they're a little outdated, maybe there's somebody who gets them a little bit better. We've seen this across the board. They're going basically to say to kids, you can trust us. So once they have the kids' trust, they can pretty much tell them anything.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting you said that about trust. I think as conservatives, we often look at issues like this and we look at the left and we think we chalk it up to maybe stupidity as opposed to strategy. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the role of the family and you go back to really the core of the modern leftist ideology, and you look at Karl Marx, he wrote in his manifesto that he wanted to get rid of the family unit.
Yes.
He believed that family was this capitalist idea. And he promised within that manifesto to have the state raise children instead of parents. And you fast forward till today, do you believe that a lot of this is very strategic, this idea that the state knows better than moms and dads? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. That is what we're seeing. And kind of going back on what we talked about, where is the battle? Where is the greatest assets? It's our children. And you can't control strong families that have strong foundations. It's really hard to break those apart. The moms and dads who are involved in kids' education and all their medical decisions and know what's going on, know what their kids are seeing and viewing and hearing, consuming. Those are hard family systems to break. So yes, that's why we see the Marxist mentality in our entertainment, in what celebrities promote, in what's cool and trendy. It's on purpose.
Yeah. Do you think that the conservative movement gives the role of parents, obviously the left gives it a lot of attention in the wrong way. Do you think the conservative movement gives it enough attention as far as ensuring that parents have the rights that they deserve, that God gave us, that government should recognize? Do you think the conservative movement does enough?
I don't think we do enough. I think for a long time, we were pretty asleep, pretty trusting. You know, the silver lining of COVID was a lot of people woke up to what was going on in the school districts. And I'll take waking up wherever it can happen.
Sure, yeah.
But also Oklahomans maybe getting a little comfortable in my red state of Oklahoma. Yeah. No, you need to know what's actually going on. And you can't defend rights that you don't know you have. So I think the conservative movement can do more to educate parents on these are your rights so you can at least have a starting point.
Yeah. You mentioned waking up, and I think we've certainly seen that. Within the last few years, the Mama Bear movement has really taken over conservative politics. The left has certainly recognized the role. It really began, or at least made national attention with Governor Youngkin's race in Virginia, and certainly we had President Trump in 2024. What do you think? Tell me about that. Tell me about moms all over the country stepping up and taking a bigger role in politics. What's that about?
Well, I can speak from my experience and the people I've talked to. It started with COVID in our schools, waking up to, wait, who's deciding if my kid goes in person or virtual for months on end, right? Okay, who's pushing this vaccine talk in my schools? And so that's when I first realized there are school board members who are elected and how that works. And so that was happening across the country, parents waking up to, whether it's they saw what was on their virtual school and they saw curriculum that was, oh, this this is a little bit questionable, or this is really easy. What is my second grader actually doing, you know? So a variety of reasons that they saw during COVID woke up, and it's been such a blessing because focusing on school boards specifically has been the open door to parents understanding just how close it is, how personal the fight is. So yes, it started school boards, city councils. Moms started realizing that the people making these decisions who sit on these boards and councils, they're just like you and me. Mm-hmm. And some of them aren't parents, and it probably should be more parents. So Moms for Liberty was started from 2 school board members who saw what was going on in their school and saw parents waking up, and they said, okay, there is something wrong here, and I'm not okay with what I'm hearing from my district, and that's how the whole movement started.
Wow. Tell me more about Moms for Liberty. It's been a name that's really grown over the last few years. Obviously, you're very involved with the organization, work for the organization. You brought up how it started. Tell me a little bit about how you guys engage in races and just in the communities.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So we're about to turn 5 years old.
It's amazing.
Very exciting. So that has morphed over the years from Tiffany and Tina, $500 to make some t-shirts to kind of raise awareness, to now we're in 49 states. So we just need Rhode Island.
What's the one state?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, so
okay.
We just got Utah this month, so that was our 48th one. So over 400,000 people, almost 400 chapters across the country. And it all started with just teaching parents to pay attention to school boards and what they discuss, what they decide. And then it's morphed into, what does it look like to build relationships with those school board members, city councilors, and now state legislators? So we now have a good handful of states that have formed legislative committees. And Oklahoma has one of those, one of the strongest, most vocal legislative committees. And so we've seen our priorities kind of shift towards that. That's the biggest bang for our buck. And we've seen tremendous success with going to the Capitol, talking to our legislators and letting them know, here's what parents say, here's what parents are watching for, and they've been super responsive.
I think a lot of people often just associate politics with running for office, and that is important. You have to have some good people run for office, and oftentimes we don't have good people who are willing to step up. But everything you mentioned there, it seems to just be everyday citizens that didn't go to school for that, haven't had experience, that just wake up and an issue touches their lives, and they decide, hey, I need to do something about it. What do you think is, when you talk to people, what are some of the obstacles that keep people from getting involved? Is it just the problem's too big? I don't know someone who's involved? Kind of what are the things that you see?
I've seen the people who took that step, it was something that affected them personally, right? And so they started digging, they started asking more questions. You'll hear finances, a little fear of, I don't actually know what I'm stepping into. What does it look like to run? So we love walking alongside good candidates, and whether we endorse them or not,
Sure.
It's something just educating. Here's what it actually looks like to run. Here's what you would need, so you can make a thorough decision. But yeah, making those connections for people who are interested and giving them the tools to decide is very important.
You mentioned some healthcare issues, and then obviously, COVID and different issues like that. There's been, within every presidential cycle, there's a coalition that either wins the presidency or doesn't. And President Trump's coalition was one like none other in history. But women took a very prominent role in that. You can't talk about MAGA moms without talking about MAHA moms. Do you have any insight into kind of how that all meshes together? How does it interact? You've got people that care about the health. Obviously, we spend more on healthcare than any other civilized country in the world, and we have some of the worst outcomes. So we have people that care about the future of our kids in that sense. But then we have a lot of moms who care about what's happening at their school board. And how does that all interact in your mind? What do you see?
Well, moms have a lot of spinning plates in our heads. And so when you talk about what's going on with my kids, it just opened the floodgates to, well, what's going on with my kids? What are they being taught in school? And then, then you kind of open the door to vaccines. Well, why do I have to vaccinate my kids and all these? Because it's a school-based thing. I have to enroll them in school, they have to have these vaccines. So then you started questioning everything. So you're right, they are tied hand in hand, because you start asking a mom about kids, they're all intertwined. So yeah, I'm not just protecting my kids' right to a solid education, I'm protecting my kids' right across the board.
Yeah. It was seen that the left, I talked a little bit earlier about kind of my framing of how the left really attacks the role of parenting, and it's an ideology. But I think more so than that, within people in our generation, really, that are being discouraged from starting a family and having kids. Research now indicates that young men in America are more likely than young women to want to have children. 57% of young men say that they would want to have children one day, but only 45% of young women indicate the same. That's very, very different than the way that I grew up. I think that's very, very different than most generations have seen. But I think it speaks to this influence that our culture has, that either one or two things are reality. And that is that either we have so demagogued the idea of family that, especially to our young ladies, that they genuinely do not want to have children, or it has become such a cultural pariah to have kids and want traditional values that if you did want them, you would not admit that you do. And neither one is good. As a mom, as someone who believes and fights for these values every day, how important is it that we wouldn't have Moms for Liberty if there weren't moms?
Yeah.
We wouldn't have that political force that was able to help turn the tide in our country if there weren't people who were willing to step up and have a family. Do you see that? Do you feel like the left is attacking the idea of, hey, it's actually okay to be a mom. It's okay to be a dad. Do you see that?
Yeah, that is a sad reality when you talk about those stats, that has infiltrated, especially younger girls' minds. I think I have 3 girls. One's about to be marriage age. And thinking about them not wanting to have a family is bizarre. Like you said, no other generation would have considered that. But I know for our generation, Moms for Liberty, we're dedicated to fighting for the survival of America, right? Conserving the values by educating and empowering parents to protect their rights at every level of government. And I'm passing that on to my kids, because America will cease to exist as we know it if we don't pass those values on to our kids. And so it is strategic that, one, we're not having as many kids as, say, the immigrants that are coming in, say the other cultures that want to take over America. It's all strategic. So we have to do our part in educating our kids on the values. Why do we have a family? And you demonstrate that it's a blessing, right? As a mom who's a believer, I know that they're weapons for the kingdom in this life and in eternity. But even if you're not, they're still an asset for Oklahoma, for our country. And so you're right. If you view everything as a strategic battle, like, it gets serious really fast.
What are some of the other issues that, I know you're very involved, you mentioned at the local level. What are some of the issues that you guys fight against or try to have accountability within our system, like for education? What are some of those issues?
That's a dirty word,
Accountability.
Yeah. So whether that's accountability for admin, for teachers in the curriculum, reviewing that, whether it's public comment being available at school board meetings, right? If you take public dollars, you need to listen in some form or another to the public. This next session, we're going to follow again any data mining bill, because again, it's strategic. If they can follow your kid from cradle to college is one of the ways we've heard it phrased. And they'll disguise it as workforce development. Well, we need to know what your kid is, how they're testing, what they're interested in, so we can funnel them into a certain workforce. Like, we don't care what they may be passionate about, we're going to funnel them into something for the state, for a system, right? So us as Moms for Liberty, as for parents, we know our kids best, and we're praying over their decisions and how their life is guided. We're going to fight against any extra kind of data mining on our children, because they want that data for a reason that's nefarious to what we are protecting, the family system that we're protecting. Also, along those lines, you'll see whole child, whole community. It's a Marxist way of doing community in schools, and it sounds very beneficial. You'll hear it in low-income places. We need to have health centers at these schools. So eventually, the goal is that this building, this school, will replace the parents. You can come before school, you can stay late, you can stay all night if you want to. You can get dental visits, you can get doctor visits, you can get psych health. Your parents sign one form and it gives the school all control for whatever you might need. And the parents aren't deciding that. Somebody in the building is deciding what your child needs. And you sign them over, they can get whatever kind of help they need in that school building. And that's here in Tulsa, and it's growing, and they're trying to grow that more. So we will fight against anything that is stepping in to take the decision-making role of a parent.
What do you think the biggest obstacle, because I know you're involved in the accountability aspect and protecting kids, but you obviously interact with the education system quite a bit. What do you think the biggest obstacle right now to the outcomes? We just have horrible outcomes recently in recent history in America regarding education. Mm-hmm. What do you think are the big obstacles, just from your sense?
Mm-hmm. So I've taught in the school system for many years, and you'll hear this from a lot of educators. I don't have support from admin. Our schools are so bogged down. They're top heavy with admin. We have some schools that have more admin than they do teachers. That blows my mind. Teachers aren't getting the disciplinary help. We are focusing more on, I don't want to say mental health is bad, but we are focusing more on counselors taking more time away. I know at my kids' school, before I pulled them from their public school, they were spending at least an hour a week in the counselor's classroom. Well, I didn't know the counselor had a classroom, and usually had an office if you needed to. No, all kids had to go to her classroom, and they were doing things that would make your blood boil. Having conversations as second graders that they should not have, comparing their skin color, comparing what kind of house they have, what their parents do for work. Okay, that's not helping math, science, reading scores. So the more time we spend doing SEL, your emotions, how are you feeling today in the classroom, you can't expect better outcomes.
Mm-hmm. There's been a real movement, and certainly Moms for Liberty seems to have been a big part of that, to try to remove just radical ideology from our schools. Mm-hmm. Do you think we're being successful, or have we made progress there?
I've seen progress, and then you've seen some people double down and keep fighting us, but thankfully this administration has been very beneficial, very, very friendly, and we've had a seat at the table on so many different things that Trump's done, and we've been so grateful for that. But yes, we have had success in identifying porn as porn in our elementary and middle schools. We've had some great success here in Tulsa County on respectfully going to the admin and saying, hey, here's what these books have. Or not so respectfully, and people reading the books in board meetings and then being asked to stop or being removed from the board meetings because they're reading a middle school book that's too explicit. But I have seen that. It's the sneakier, like I said, the SEL, the social emotional learning, that sounds really good. It sounds important. Our kids need to be resilient. They need to develop grit. They'll disguise it with all those words so that you can't fight against it, or else you sound crazy, right? Because you have to care about the kids' stress levels in school. So you have to look for certain words and say, is this going to increase scores? Is this going to actually develop a love of learning, or are we telling the kids to focus more internally? The more they're focusing internally on their feelings, the harder it is they're going to get back out into critical thinking about math, about reading. So it's either inside thinking or outside projective thinking. And so that's what I've seen in the classroom.
What do you think is the strategy then to, certainly the administration has really done tremendous work, and I think part of it is the idea of sending education back to the states, going to empower people at the local level. I certainly trust someone in Oklahoma to make those decisions more than I do in Washington, D.C., for obvious reasons. But that gets to the idea of accountability, like you talked about. Do you think that the answer to provide more accountability for the curriculum, the books, is at the school board level? Is it state law? Kind of what's the strategy to really, you think, make even more progress there?
I wish I had an easy answer for
Yeah.
you. I think it's all of that and more. It's more parents paying attention to what's getting passed to the school board. It is school board members asking hard questions that may rattle some feathers, for other school board members or their superintendent. So if you're willing to ask the hard questions about what curriculum, what contracts, but then yes, legislatively, if we can't get it done by civil conversations with the admin, then yeah, I go to my legislators, and I have 6 bills being ran for me this year because an admin at school wouldn't help us out. So, okay, let's go look at what the state law says and what we need to do. Because ideally, I don't want to have the Oklahoma state government having to tell schools what to do.
Right.
But if you're not respecting parental rights, you're not, constitutionally honoring taxpayers, then we have to go that route. But one thing we don't always talk about is we have to have parents engaged. And you'll hear that from teachers. I can only do so much. You have them every minute that they're at home with you is so valuable, right? They're at school for so many hours a day, but when they're with you, you need to be asking the questions. You need to be developing that level of learning at home, having those conversations.
Right.
So having more parents understanding just how important their role, because parents are educators. They are the primary decision makers. It's not a backseat role. So the more parents identify themselves, because you can't protect rights you don't know you have. So let's have parents understanding just how important they are, and I think that will give us some good benefits.
Last question, if you're a parent out there and you're not involved, what would be the first thing that you would do as far as to take a step that would make a difference? What would you tell them?
I say it's really easy. Anybody can start by just asking questions, right? Like I said, you don't know how to defend rights you don't know you have. You can't hold people accountable if you don't know what their job is. How do you hold an elected official accountable if you don't know who they are and what they do? So start asking questions, start asking around. I would sign up for everybody's newsletter, right? Go find out who's your school board, who's your state rep, who's your state senator. All that information's online. Sign up for their newsletters. Are they having a town hall? Just start going and attending, listening, asking questions. This morning I met with an elected official. I just, asked him, hey, could we meet for coffee? I just want to get to know you and your job better. Absolutely. You can do that. Anybody can do that. They're accessible to you. So once people realize they're normal people like you and me, they want to and they need to hear from you, just open that door and you'll find that they're actually really accessible and friendly.
That's great advice. Attention is the first catalyst for change. And if you're not paying attention, nothing will ever change. So I think that's really good advice. If someone wanted to follow the work of Moms for Liberty or get in touch with your organization, how can they do that?
Yeah, so on the national website, momsforliberty.org, you can sign up as a national member. Then you can find your county, or if your county doesn't have a chapter, you could start one or join one nearby. And then we all have Facebook groups for each of the counties. So Tulsa County has a Facebook group you can join, and we have meetings and different get-togethers. It's a great networking place. So online is your best bet.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. Of course.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Veto. Be sure to like and subscribe to this content on Substack by visiting yourveto.com. Don't forget that we the people hold the ultimate veto power. It's your freedom, it's your decision. We'll see you next time.